Besties, I need you to listen closely because what I'm about to tell you isn't just another scandal. It's a full-blown broken system. Right now, while Doge is auditing the government, I feel like we need to be talking about this because what's happening in bankruptcy courts is just as bad. We're talking about judges who are supposed to be neutral, but are instead using the system to make their legal buddies filthy rich. And the best example of this, the case that's unfolding right now with James Dondero and Judge Stacey Jernigan. This isn't some old corruption story. This is happening in real time. And if there's ever been a time for public pressure, it's now. Judge Jernigan should not be ruling on a case where she's already shown blatant bias, but guess what? She is. So who can help? We need eyes on this. Tag Pam Bondi, Texas Senators Ted Cruz, and John Cornyn. Because if they're serious about fighting corruption, this is the moment to prove it. And don't get it twisted. This isn't just about Dondero. He's just the one who's been screaming for people to pay attention to this. But soon, I'll be showing you how this exact same system is hitting other businesses too. Spirit Airlines, Hooters, yes, even Hooters besties. So let's talk about it. Because if this continues, no company, no person, no investor is safe from getting legally robbed in bankruptcy court. Oh, and before we get into it, make sure you're subscribed, like this video, and hit that notification bell. Because trust me, the people making millions off this system would love for you to miss it. Let's go.
Here is Ariadna Jacob,
social media expert and creatorgenius.com founder, Ari Jacob.
The influencer whisperer linked to the explosion of TikTok superstars.
Her name is Ariadna Jacob, filed the defamation suit.
Her story is the American dream story. Immigrant from Mexico, father dies when she's 2, makes it on her own by herself.
I hope you end this. Ariadna Jacob. Ariadna, I found that really interesting.
Let's recap. Judge Stacey Jernigan presided over a $1 billion corporate bankruptcy, turned it into a liquidation feeding frenzy for law firms, all while writing a fictional novel about the very people she was actively ruling against. And the courts, the system, just let it slide. This isn't just a scandal. This is a blueprint for how judges can abuse their power and get away with it. Because if they can do this to a billionaire, what do you think they can do to regular people like us? And trust me, this case gets even wilder. We haven't even talked about the backroom deals, the insane legal fees, and how bankruptcy courts are basically money laundering operations for law firms.
All you have to do is launder this money through your club.
The next part is exposing the corrupt business of bankruptcy courts. So now that we've established that Judge Stacey Jernigan was out here writing fan fiction about the people she was actively ruling against,
I want to write a book about you.
Let's talk about the bigger picture. How bankruptcy courts are basically money laundering operations for law firms and insiders, allegedly.
Even if we could launder money, I wouldn't want to.
Because trust me, this isn't just about one shady judge. This is apparently an entire system operating exactly the way it was designed to. This leads me to ask who's all in on this. This is what you guys have to ask. Anytime there's a shady situation, you always have to be like, who sets to gain? Where's the money go? Follow the money trail. This is how it's possible that bankruptcy courts became legalized corruption.
It'll look like a totally legitimate company, and then you could funnel whatever money through it that you want to.
Most people hear bankruptcy court and think it's about helping businesses reorganize their debts. And you hear about these famous, how many, like Trump, you hear, oh yeah, he filed for bankruptcy a bunch of times and whatever, right? Apparently the bankruptcy courts aren't just like helping these businesses reorganize their debts. Apparently can be about making lawyers and court insiders filthy rich. Let's use Highland Capital as an example. When they filed for bankruptcy in 2019, they weren't broke, okay? In fact, they had over $560 million in net assets at the time. The plan was supposed to be a normal restructuring where they'd keep operating while paying off debt. But here's where the bankruptcy cartel kicks in. Instead of letting Highland reorganize, the court led by Judge Jernigan turned it into a liquidation free-for-all. And guess who made out like bandits? Not the creditors, not the employees, the law firms and the insiders who walked away with over $200 million in legal fees.
How is this legal?
You guys, did you hear that? The law firms made out with $200 million in legal fees. It's a lot of money.
It's a legal loophole.
I thought this was only supposed to be, it started off as a small case and they were going to reorganize. It's very confusing. $200 million in fees. Let me say that again. It was a court-enforced bankruptcy case. It wasn't about saving a company. It was about milking it dry so legal insiders could get paid first. So who were the players that got to cash in? Who got rich off of this? Let's break that down. I do have some notes on this. You got Pacholsky, Stang, Zeal, and Jones, the lead law firm making billions for services. Sidley Austin, another firm ranking in insane fees. And the court-appointed overseers, also stacking cash while pretending to be neutral. It's so funny, you guys. Like, this reminds me of... There's a movie about it, about conservatorships and how that's like a whole kind of messed up business where like somebody gets old, throw them into a home and take all their money.
That you require assistance in taking care of yourself.
I'm fine.
I'm afraid it's not up to you to decide. The court has appointed me to be your legal guardian.
What?
Apparently, there's something going on in these bankruptcy courts because $200 million, and it seems like they forced him to do this full liquidation. It sounds a little sus. And while all these people were getting stupidly rich, guess who was getting screwed? The actual people who worked at Highland. Employees lost their jobs. Investors lost money. But the lawyers, oh, they were eating. And yeah, that's the thing, right? When I got smeared in the New York Times, nobody cared that I wasn't getting paid anything by all these influencers who basically stole from me. Nobody cared about the people who were consulting for me that were a lot of people. It was a startup. So a lot of people were just working for the dream. Like we were all going to have a piece of this business. And nobody cares about these people because they're like faceless. It's easy to create a villain and then say, that's all their fault. They deserve to get nothing. But it's not usually just them. And usually a person isn't the real villain, okay? And here's where it gets even crazier. Bankruptcy courts prioritize legal fees over literally everything else. In a corporate bankruptcy, the lawyers, judges, and oversight professionals get paid first before creditors, employees, or investors see a dime. Isn't that crazy?
Remind me of that when I'm filing for bankruptcy.
So even if there was money left over for the actual victims of this bankruptcy, it was already picked clean by the time it got to them, apparently. How do judges like Jernigan protect the game? And who makes sure this scam runs smoothly? The judges. Judges like Stacey Jernigan, allegedly, who handpicked the law firms that will profit from these bankruptcies, oversee the entire liquidation process, and then, when it's all over, retire and go work for those same law firms. It's a closed-loop system. It's rigged from the very start.
How is this legal?
And the best part, these judges are basically untouchable. Bankruptcy judges are appointed for 14-year terms, and removing one is almost impossible. They can do whatever they want, hand out millions in legal fees, and there's no real oversight to stop them.
For the good of all mankind, we must stop this from happening.
Are you guys interested in this? I feel like we need to get this cooking, you guys, because how is this legal? Like, what? I don't know if it's because, like, they're essentially screwing over people that have money or something like that, or like these businesses, and so it's like a faceless entity. It's not faceless, obviously. Dondero is a real man. But, like, how is the media not picking this up? It's wild.
This is not fair.
The Fifth Circuit's role in covering this up. So when Dondero tried to get Jernigan removed for writing a revenge novel about him, the Fifth Circuit had a choice. They could have admitted that this was a conflict of interest, removed her and investigated her rulings, but instead they shrugged and said it's concerning but not illegal.
She wrote a book about him.
Because if they admitted that one judge was out of control, they'd have to admit the entire system is corrupt. This is what justice looks like in bankruptcy courts. A system where judges, law firms, and court insiders collude to drain companies dry, hand themselves massive paydays, and then get away with it because there's no one powerful enough to stop them.
I told you, it can't be stopped.
And the Highland Capital case, it's just one example. So if they can do this to a billionaire, can they do it to you? In the next part of this deep dive, we're going to break down how judges like Jernigan escape accountability, the insane legal loopholes they exploit, and why Congress refuses to do anything about it. So if you think this is bad now, just wait. So let's talk about why bankruptcy judges are untouchable. At this point, we've covered how Judge Stacey Jernigan turned the Highland Capital case into a full-blown liquidation free-for-all. how her courtroom insiders walked away with $200 million in legal fees, and how she was writing revenge novels about the very people she was actively ruling against.
This is not fair.
But the real question is, how is she still on the bench, and how does a judge do all of this in broad daylight and face zero consequences? Besties, let me introduce you to the broken, rigged, completely unchecked world of bankruptcy courts, where judges can do whatever the hell they want, hand out millions in legal fees, and there's no real way to hold them accountable.
I knew that money laundering was a crime, but it's a white-collar country club, tennis court, jail kind of crime.
So how are bankruptcy judges actually appointed, and why don't they fear?
It would have made me judge, jury, and executioner with zero accountability.
Let's start with the insane way bankruptcy judges get in there. Because unlike real federal judges who are nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate, bankruptcy judges are appointed by, wait for it, other judges. No public input, no elections, no direct accountability, just a little judicial club picking their own members. Isn't that cute? And once they're in, they get 14-year terms with almost zero oversight. And let's be real, most of them just cycle between the bench and high-paying law firm jobs, cashing in on the same system they helped to rig. It's wild. Now do you see why I want to talk about this? They appoint the judges, you get it? It's weird. It's a pay-to-play scheme. They make rulings that benefit law firms, then retire to go work for those same firms. It's if a referee in the Super Bowl got to join the winning team after the game. Make it make sense. If you thought this was bad, just wait, because in the next part, we're exposing the judicial immunity scam and why these judges can literally get away with anything. We're talking about a system where judges protect other judges, where you can't sue them, can't get them removed, and no matter how blatant the corruption is, they face zero consequences. And if you're not furious yet, just wait until you hear how many bankruptcy judges have been removed in the last 20 years. Spoiler, it's zero. And here's why this matters right now. This isn't just about Dondero or Highland Capital. This might be happening in the Spirit Airlines bankruptcy too, because if the same shady bankruptcy judges and lawyers get their way, the money that should be going to pilots' pensions, employees, and creditors, it's just going to disappear, siphoned off into legal fees, while the insiders cash out and walk away. So what can we do? We need public pressure. This is happening right now, and the only way things change is if people start paying attention. Tag Pam Bondi, Texas Senators Ted Cruz and John Cornyn, and Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. They need to hear this. They need to know that people are watching and that Judge Jernigan should not be ruling on this case. And if you're not subscribed yet, fix that right now. Hit the button, turn on notifications, and like this video, because trust me, the people making millions off this system do not want you to hear what's next. Before you go, drop a comment. Who else needs to see this? Let's get this trending, because if nobody speaks up, they'll just keep doing it. All right, that's it for now, but don't go far. Part 3 is coming, and if you thought this was corrupt, oh, you're not ready for what's next. See you in the next one.